Hello and welcome. I am Reb, and I know it's been a while since my last video. I got sick, took some time off for the holidays, got sick again, and generally just fell behind. But I'm back. It's a new year, and as we begin 2025, we also approach the 1-year anniversary of this channel, which is pretty significant. I've got some things in mind on how to celebrate the anniversary, and I'll have some details to share on that later. For now, let's kick off 2025 on a positive note. This video, and those that follow it, will take the place of my Rebel Recommends, because I think it's best to leave recommendations to the critical drinker. Instead, I will occasionally highlight something that I love, something I believe to be worthy of praise and attention, something that gets my personal seal of approval. So for henceforth, they will be called Rebel Approved. In this first iteration, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite video games of all time, and now is the perfect time to revisit it. I'm talking about the one, the only, the original, Tomb Raider. I have made a couple videos in the past talking about the Tomb Raider franchise, why the Netflix animated show is an easily skippable, nonsensical, mediocre mess, and why I don't like the direction Crystal Dynamics has taken the franchise. So I don't need to retread any of that territory, but I will take a few minutes to show my love for where it all began. When Tomb Raider first released in 1996, I was 14 years old, a rising adolescent amped up on hormones and becoming entrenched in my love for video games. Though all I had played up to that point were point-and-click adventure games like King's Quest and 2D side-scrollers like Sonic and Mario. Tomb Raider was one of the first, if not the first, 3D adventure games I ever played. It's hard to explain the experience of going from the pitfalls and Goombas I was familiar with to exploring vast open caverns, multi-level tombs, and the puzzles of Tomb Raider. I'm talking about a game with no mini-maps, no waypoints, no yellow paint to helpfully mark correct paths. Tomb Raider drops you into an area and then expects you to figure it out. From the first time I booted it up, Tomb Raider was a challenge unlike anything I'd ever faced before, and I loved it. And all that before we even get to what became the franchise's biggest selling point, or points depending on how you look at it. That is, the main protagonist, Lara Croft. Back in a time where the gaming space was dominated by male protagonists vying for the predominantly male audience, publisher Eidos Interactive and developer Core Design made the gutsy move to make a game with a female protagonist. Lead designer Toby Gard successfully managed to convince the higher-ups at both companies that his concept for a female Indiana Jones could work. And he was right. Lara rose out of a field of video game characters like Mario, Sonic, Ryu, Crash Bandicoot, and Duke Nukem. Lara transcended the niche enclave of geek gaming culture and slipped into the mainstream. Even people who never touched a video game knew Lara Croft. Some of it was her sensationalized physique. Some of it was her cold, tenacious personality, with the very occasional flash of cheeky British humor.
Well, you have my total attention now. I'm not quite sure if I've got yours, though. Hello?
Whatever the reason, she certainly appealed to my teenage self. But the first game, and Lara herself, managed to spawn a massive franchise, encompassing 12 mainline games, as well as a number of add-ons, portable versions, and mobile games, as well as 3 movies, an animated series, and a number of comics and novels spanning nearly 3 decades. Over that time, Tomb Raider and Lara would change. After the first game, Lara would go through voice performers and appearance changes like the drinker goes through a bottle of Jack Daniels. Okay, so I referenced him in the intro, so I had to do at least one callback. But that's the last one, I promise.
Believe that.
But through all the changes, I find myself returning again and again to the original incarnation of Lara. It is my favorite, at least the iteration that stayed largely unchanged in Tomb Raider 1 through 4. There's probably a lot I could say about each of these games, but for the sake of brevity, I'll stick to just the first one. The original Tomb Raider doesn't have a deep or complicated narrative, but it does have a story that gives purpose to what you're doing. As the game opens, we see what is meant to be a nuclear weapons test. Flying into the crater left behind reveals some kind of strange device and a figure trapped in ice. Then we meet Lara herself, who is in Calcutta, apparently taking a little vacation after killing Bigfoot. Lara is approached by a smooth-talking guy with a heavy American accent. Though this guy, Larson, isn't the one who's interested in Lara. He's just there to make an introduction. Via a video call on a laptop computer, something that was rather high-tech for the time, Lara meets Jacqueline Natla, the CEO of a technology company. Playing on the eccentric CEO trope, Natla propositions Lara to go after what she calls an age-old artifact of mystical powers.
There's this little trinket. An age-old artifact of mystical powers buried in the unfound tomb of Qualopec.
From this short exchange, we learn that Lara is an independent adventurer who can't be bought. She has no interest in taking money. As Lara says, she plays for sport, for fun.
I'm sorry, I only play for sport.
But Natla's explanation of an unfound tomb buried deep in the mountains of Peru is enough to capture her interest. So in the next cutscene, Lara has arrived in Peru. She is left stranded after her guide is killed by a pack of wolves, and the adventure begins. You traverse several areas, including caves and a lost valley with dinosaurs. After finally reaching the tomb and retrieving the artifact, Lara is ambushed by Larsen. After a brief confrontation, Lara learns that the artifact is called the Scion, and it's only part of a whole.
This piece, you say? Where's the rest?
You'll have to ask Ms. Natla.
Thank you. I will.
And given that Natla has just double-crossed Lara, she decides to reply in kind, and goes out to beat her former employer at finding the remaining pieces. Traversing areas in Greece and Egypt, Lara manages to assemble the 3 pieces of the Scion, and learns that this ancient artifact has something to do with Atlantis. But upon completing the Scion, Lara again is ambushed by Natla and some of her thugs. She loses the artifact but escapes unharmed and manages to follow Natla to Atlantis. She makes her way through a series of caverns and mines, and takes on the various members of Natla's crew, before reaching the pyramid, which houses a strange organic-looking structure, as if parts of the building itself is alive. She also starts to encounter strange, skinless monsters. All of this concludes in the Grand Chamber near the top of the pyramid, where we learn that Natla herself is a former leader of Atlantis. Before disaster struck the island, Natla led a rebellion in an attempt to usurp the other 2 leaders, Qualopec and Tihocan. When her plans failed, Natla was sealed away in a frozen prison, where she was to spend an eternity for her betrayal. However, her prison was damaged in the nuclear test we saw in the intro. The explosion freed Natla and unleashed her back into our world. That is what we witnessed in the opening cutscene. Using her knowledge of Atlantean technology, Natla started a tech company, and amassed the wealth and influence she needed to hunt down the pieces of the Scion, so she could return to her dreams of breeding a new life form, in hopes of igniting a new phase of human evolution.
Evolution's in a rut, natural selection at an all-time low. Shipping out fresh meat will incite territorial rages again. Will strengthen and advance us.
Lara manages to defeat Natla and destroys the Scion, which starts a chain reaction that destroys the whole pyramid. The game ends as Lara takes Natla's yacht home. As I said, the story is rather simple and basic, and really just there to give players some context for why they're exploring each new area. However, it does provide enough material to cement Lara as a character unto herself. Gameplay-wise, Tomb Raider helped blaze some trails for 3D platformers. The tank controls do feel dated now, but if you've got the willingness to stick with them, they generally work pretty well. The mix of exploration, puzzle solving, and action are well balanced and engaging. From big, pensive environments where not much happens, to the pants-wetting moment a T-Rex rounds a corner and barrels straight for you, there's more than a few iconic moments throughout this game. I will admit though, the game isn't perfect. There are a couple levels that drag on longer than they need to. The camera can be frustratingly unhelpful, especially when trying to line up a critical life or death jump. And I don't think I'll ever forgive the core design team for the Natla's Mines level, that has you running back and forth retreading the same area multiple times to open the path out. However, the first Tomb Raider game still stands as one of the best and most impressive games from the 90s. It is part of a renaissance which propelled gaming from a niche geek hobby to a new art form, and a mass medium all its own. Not to mention that thanks to the remasters by Aspyr, it also stands the test of time. Tomb Raider is every bit as challenging and entertaining as it was when I first played it all those years ago. And so I say with full enthusiasm that the OG Tomb Raider is Rebel approved. Just remember, this is all one Rebel's opinion. Let me know what you think of Tomb Raider, and also if there's any games, movies, or shows you'd like to see me cover in the future. Like the video, and don't forget to subscribe so you'll always get all the latest updates from Rebel Normal.